Hello, my name is Euro and welcome to another Baldur's Gate 3 build video. In today's video I'll be showing you my quote-unquote purist rogue build, which will be a build that will have only one level of fighter so that we can get some proficiencies and a fighting style, while the rest of the levels will be purely a rogue. In our case, a thief, because I think it works, this kind of a build works best with a rogue thief or assassin, although the stronger subclass would be the thief, because it gives you one additional bonus action which you can utilize throughout the entire combat section instead of just at the beginning if you're first. Alright, so let's get into our character creation. So for our character, we're going to go, of course, as a custom character. Reason being is, preferably you want to go either as a halfling, the lightful halfling who have advantage in stealth. This is going to allow you to have this advantage without actually needing equipment, such as one of the short sword that gives you advantage, or the armors. The other race that I would suggest to go would be the Deep Gnome, who also have the Stone Camouflage, so they have the advantage on stealth, and also have superior Dark Vision, so if you want to have a character with Dark Vision, you could possibly then go with the Gnomes, although their racial feature is that they have advantage on Dungeons, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws, which is actually quite handy compared to the Gnome. They have Lucky, so when you roll a 1 on attack roll, ability check, and a saving throw, you can reroll this die and must use a new roll, and you also have advantage against being frightened. So each one of them has their own advantage. This one is more resilient to getting crowd controlled by various spells, while I think halflings are, in a nutshell, better as rogues for pickpocketing and so on, because if you get a natural 1 while pickpocketing, you will reroll that and get a new roll, potentially preventing you from getting caught. So I will go with a halfling in this example because this is what I went with in my playthrough of testing this. You can of course try any other race, but then you will need to have some different equipment that can get you advantage on stealth, and that's quite important because we will be capable of pretty much being hidden most of the time unless our enemies have dark vision. So for our subrace, we're going with the Lightfoot Halfling. Now for our class, even though this is a rogue build, our first level will be a fighter. Reason being is we want the fighting style. We want the fighting style and we want all of the weapon armor proficiencies, because normally if you don't do this, your character will only get proficiencies from their race or background. So we're going as a fighter for the first level, and for fighting style we're going with archery. I think archery is quite necessary for a rogue. Reason is, of course, this gives you +2 to ranged weapon attacks, so you have greater accuracy, and you want to hit your ranged weapon attacks because you only get 1, right? If you miss your attack for that turn, you're pretty much done. You can't attack again unless you maybe drink a potion of speed. Now for our background, since we are going as a fighter, we will not get the rogue our skills here. So as a rogue, you can have expertise and proficiency in sleight of hand and stealth, and you can also have additional 2. But since we're going as a fighter archery, and if you look at our skills here, we only get 2. So what we have to do is, for our background, I would suggest going Charlatan, which gives you sleight of hand proficiency. So if this is your main pickpocket or character, you can go as Urchin, which gives you sleight of hand and stealth. This doesn't give you any dialogue choices, but does give you both of those. And then the other one is the Criminal. Criminal gives you stealth and deception. In my opinion, it is a lot better if you go either Charlatan or Urchin. I went with Charlatan in my playthrough because I wanted to have at least one dialogue skill. So I have sleight of hand and deception. If you go to our skills here, as you can see, we have efficiency from our background, and then you can keep intimidation where it is if you want a secondary or a backup skill, or you can put it into perception. Survival is nice for the chest. Insight is also quite decent. History is not that good. Athletics I would keep where it is. So this one is, I guess, your preference which one you want. I will just keep it in intimidation for this example. Now for our ability scores, we're going to go with 17 dexterity, 16 constitution, 14 wisdom, and then you can go with either 10 charisma or 10 strength. It's completely up to you. I went with 10 strength in my example just so I have a little bit of additional carry weight. It won't help a lot, but it helps. Basically having any strength helps a little bit just so you're not easily overweight or over encumbered. 17 dexterity is important, of course. We want this so that we are accurate and deal more damage with our ranged weapons and finesse weapons. Constitution is so that we don't die to a wet fart, so that we have at least a little bit more HP. It will help us with concentrating on some of our spells, but the main reason is so that we have a little bit increased HP. And Wisdom 14 is to help us succeed against crowd control saving throws that require intelligence, wisdom. Well, not intelligence, wisdom, mainly wisdom, and that's the most common saving throw there is in the game. And the skills are going to be what they are, like that. So we can move on to level 2. Alright, so here we are at level 2. We are going to go now back to our rogue here, and we get to change our skill proficiencies. So if you look now here, we get our expertise. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep this point of proficiency into sleight of hand, and we're gonna put our expertise into stealth and sleight of hand. This is going to allow you to have both of those basically as high as possible, since I would assume this would be your main character that's gonna lockpick chests, pickpocket characters, and so on. And he's especially useful in Act 3 in the bank vault. And of course, stealth is gonna help you with staying hidden in obscured areas. And we can move on to level 3. At level 3, we unlock our organic actions. This is one level later than usual, but it's still fine. It's not too much of a big deal. At level 4, we unlock our subclass, and in this case, we're gonna go as the thief because we gain one of the additional bonus action. We also have second story work, which makes us resistant to falling damage. Now, as I mentioned, this build can also work with the assassin. Assassin just gives you the assassin initiative. You're deadliest against unprepared enemies. In combat, you have advantage against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. You also have any successful attack roll against a surprise creature is a critical strike. And Assassin's Alacrity, quick as an alley cat in the Rain Dark City. You immediately restore your action and bonus action at start of combat. This is useful, but it is weaker than the Thief, since Thief works basically, since you get this bonus action, you always have it, while the Assassin's features work only on the first turn of combat, basically when you are first in the initiative. So we're going with the Thief. Now at level 5, we get our first feat, and again, one level later than usual, but that's fine. For the first feat, we're going with the ability improvement +2 into dexterity. This is going to help us with damage and accuracy. Then at level 5 or level 4, you can deal with Anti-Ethel, where you can potentially get another +1 into dexterity to round it up to a nice 20. And then again, you can in the Act 3 do the Mirror of Loss, where you can get additional +2. I should also mention that in the Act 3 there are gloves that give you +1 or +2 dexterity if you are a... They give you +2 dexterity if you're a gnome, and +1 if you are a halfling. So you can also potentially get 24 dexterity with those, but they are optional, of course. At level 6, we gain our Uncanny Dodge, so you use your Lightning Quick reflexes to protect yourself. When an attack hits you, you only take half the usual damage. But this is quite okay as a class feature. At level 7, we can change our skills here if we wish. We can go from like deception to athletics, or acrobatics into athletics, and so on. So I would probably keep this, or if anything, I would change from acrobatics into athletics, so that this helps us shove and resist being shoved. But even if you keep it in the acrobatics, you won't do really a mistake. And this is just the same thing, it just offers it to you twice for some reason. At level 8, we get evasion. Your agility lets you dodge out of the way of certain spells. When a spell or effect would deal half damage on a successful dexterity saving throw, it deals no damage if you succeed and only half damage if you fail. This is also a quite nice damage reducing feature. At level 9, we get our second feat, and here we're gonna be taking Sharpshooter. Your ranged weapon attacks do not receive penalties from high ground rules. Your weapon attacks with your ranged weapon attacks you're proficient with have a -5 penalty to their attack roll, but you deal 10 additional damage. You can toggle this effect on or off. So this is basically Great Weapon Master, but just for ranged weapons. This is very useful to use with advantage, and since we will have advantage quite often, since we can hide on the same turn we attack, basically allowing us to use this almost always. At level 10, we gain the Supreme Sneak, blending to the environment so completely that you become invisible. This is okay, but you won't be using it too much, as it is an action, and most of the time you would rather attack than go invisible. But I guess if you are in a peculiar situation where you kind of have to run away, you can use this to go invisible and then try and run. At level 11, we unlock our third feat, and here I would suggest taking Lucky. What Lucky does, it gives you 3 luck points, which you can use to gain advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws, or make an enemy reroll their attack rolls. So this can help you hit that one attack you get. Your one singular attack will be quite powerful since we gain 11 levels of rogue. That gives us the maximum amount of the sneak attack dice that we can get. So it is quite important that you hit your attacks, but it can also save you from enemies trying to crowd control you as well. So I think Lucky is a pretty good choice here. So we can move on to the last level. And lastly, at level 12, we get the Reliable Talent. When you make an ability check with a skill you're proficient with, the lowest result you can roll on the die is a 10. So what this basically means is that the lowest thing you can roll when you're pickpocketing or when you are using stealth. Actually, stealth is a saving throw. When you're pickpocketing, it should be a 10, so you have a very high chance of succeeding those rolls in a nutshell. Alright, that's it for the levels. We'll now go into the equipment section. Alright, so here we are in the equipment section, so let's start with our headgear. Here we have the covered cowl. While obscured, the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. This effect can stack, and we will be trying to stack as many of these as we can. Not the fullest maximum mod, but we'll be really high up there. Now, this covered cowl is nice for you because you will look to be obscured almost always since you want to hide. Now, for the alternatives, you can take the Dark Justiciar helmet since you are proficient with medium armor. This gives you the same effect of covert critical, but it also gives you a +1 bonus to saving throws against spells. Or you could even take the Saravok's Horned Helmet, which gives you the sort of improved version of the covert critical, which this one doesn't require you to be obscured. It also gives you dark vision of 10 feet, and if you have it, it's then 50 feet. It also gives you Dauntless, so you cannot be frightened and cannot be afflicted with other emotional altering conditions. Constitution saves +1. So all of these three are pretty good competitors for the headgear slot. It's up to you. If you're using these two, of course, then you might as well go with the cover cowl. For our cloak, I went with the Shadeslayer Cloak. While hiding, the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. This effect can stack. So this is one of the only cloaks we would potentially want to use, as this further reduces your critical hit roll required. Since we do have 2 bonus actions, we can always use 1 to hide during combat, shoot, and then potentially hide again during the same turn. For the earlier game, you could use the Cloak of Cunning Broom, which makes it so when you disengage, you create a foggy cloud in a 7-foot radius that lasts for 1 turn. So you can blind your enemies, run out of the cloud, and then shoot them with advantage. For the armor, I went with the Yuan-Ti Scale Mail. Add your full dexterity modifier to armor class. Additionally, this armor does not impose disadvantage on stealth checks. It also gives you +1 to the initiative rolls. For the alternative, you can take the Armor of Agility. This has the same effect, which it adds your full dexterity modifier to armor class, and it doesn't impose disadvantage. It also gives you a +2 to the saving throws. So it's up to you. The Armor of Agility does end up providing you more armor class and gives you a +2 to saving throws, while UNT gives you 1 bonus to initiative. So basically, the preference is, do you want 2 more armor class, or do you bonus saving throws, or do you want that 1 initial initiative? For our gloves, I went with the Stalker gloves. You gain a +1 bonus to initiative. Your sneak attacks also deal 1d4 force damage. These are pretty decent rogue gloves to have, and having that 1 bonus to initiative is also useful. Now for the earlier game or the alternatives, you can take the Gloves of Power. On hit with a weapon attack, possibly inflict a 1d4 penalty to targets, attacks, and saving throws. This essentially just afflicts Bane. Gloves of Thievery are useful just to carry around in your inventory, so when you are using pickpockets or lockpicking, you can equip these to gain advantage. Dark Justiciar Gauntlets makes your weapon attacks deal additional 1d4 necrotic damage, so another good damage increasing gloves for all attacks, not just critical hits or sneak attacks. Creative Flesh Gloves, whenever you score a critical hit, you deal additional 1d6 force damage, so these are good for when you crit. Where there's a ring, never mind that. Then for our boots, I went with the Disintegrating Night Walkers. You can't be webbed, entangled, or ensnared, and can't slip on grease or ice. And this gives you 1 Misty Step per short rest. So great mobility boots that also prevent you from getting crowd controlled. For the alternatives, you can actually use the Speed of Light feat. Whenever the wearer dashes or takes a similar action during combat, they gain 3 lightning charges. So you can pretty much every single turn of combat use Cunning Action Dash, which will activate this effect, granting you additional lightning damage and bonus to attack rolls. So this is quite decent until you get the disintegrated Nightwalkers. Or if somebody already has them, then these are also pretty good. Some other boots you could use if the others are unavailable is the Acrobat Shoes. Acrobatics +1 and advantage in dexterity saving throws, and Evasive Shoes if you want more acrobatics and armor class. Now for our amulet, I went with the Surgeon Subjugation amulet. Once per long rest while scoring critical hit on a humanoid, you can paralyze the target for 2 turns. Since we will be scoring critical hits relatively consistently, this is a useful amulet for you to have. For the alternatives, you could take the Amulet Misty Step for more mobility. This gives you Misty Step once per short rest. Or you could even take the Broodmaster's Revenge if you want more poison damage whenever you are healed. Since you do have 2 bonus actions, you can then choose to drink 1 potion of healing in the late game, especially since they're cheap and you should have a lot of them anyway. For our rings, I went with the Ring of Shadows. This grants you pass without trades once per long rest. Now, this ring generally is pretty useless. It's rather bad, but for a rogue, since you can cast this on the beginning of a long rest and then it lasts until you break concentration or until long rest, this gives you +10 to stealth checks to you and all of your nearby companions. So it's gonna be very hard for anybody to spot you while you're obscured, again, unless they have dark vision and if they are close enough to spot you in there. But otherwise, you will have a quite ridiculous bonus since this adds +10 and you will have a +14. So just because of the ring and your natural ability, you'll have a +24 to your stealth checks. And additionally, of course, if you have a wizard cast Greater Invisibility on you, you'll be pretty much invisible all the time unless that wizard breaks his concentration. For the second ring, I went with the Acoustic Band. This gives your weapon attacks additional to acid damage, just overall a nice damage boosting ring. For the alternatives, you could take the Shadow Cloak ring. The wearer's weapon and unarmed attacks deal additional 1d4 damage against slightly heavily obscured creatures and creatures made of shadow. So this is a good alternative to the damage ring if in case you gave the Acoustic Band to somebody else. Then of course there is the Killer Sweetheart. When you kill a creature, your next attack roll will be a critical hit. Once spent, this effect refreshes after a long rest. So you can use this ring to bank 1 guaranteed critical hit, but honestly it isn't really necessary on the character, but in case you need a backup or a guaranteed crit, you can use this. If you're using any other boots that are not the Disintegrated Nightwalkers, you can then use the Ring of Free Action. You ignore effects of difficult terrain, you cannot be paralyzed or restrained. And then there is also the Smuggler's Ring. This ring is here mainly to serve the same purpose as the Gloves of Thievery. You carry this on you, and then when you need to use a Sleight of Hand or Stealth, well, not Stealth, but Sleight of Hand when you're pickpocketing or lockpicking, you equip this ring to gain an additional +2 to that roll. Now for our weapons, I'm going with the Knife on the Undermountain King. You can get this weapon really early in the game in the Githyanki Crash. This gives you the Organ Rearranger. Reduce the number you need to roll critical hit while attacking by 1. This effect can stack. And when you roll 2 damage or less, reroll the dice taking the highest result. So this is another one that's going to reduce our requirement for a critical roll. So right now we have -1, 2, 3, so we crit on a 17. This also has the Shadow Blade, which you have advantage on attack rolls against slightly or heavily obscured creatures targets when using this blade. For our second blade, I'm using the Dolor Amarus. When you land a critical hit with a weapon attack or unarmed attack, it deals additional 7 damage. This is great because when you do critical hit, this makes it hurt really bad because 7 additional damage is quite good. It's a guaranteed 7 damage, so this is a pretty good dagger to carry around as your offhand. Now for the alternatives, you can use the Ambusher. This gives you advantage on perception ability checks and +1 to initiative. It also makes it that you deal additional 1d6 necrotic damage against creatures that haven't taken a turn, but this is more of a potentially assassin weapon as it only works on the first turn against creatures that haven't taken their turns yet. We also have here the Bloodthirst. It has improved critical as well. The number you need to roll critical hit is reduced by 1, so we can reduce this further. But you get this dagger quite late in the game, so you can use this for the final stretch of the game, but if you don't, then of course it's fine. It has a bunch of effects here. For example, if it's your main hand, it makes creatures vulnerable to piercing damage that you hit with this. If it's in your offhand, when a creature misses you with a melee attack, you may retaliate and gain true strike against them. It also gives you 1 armor class. I also have the Crimson Mischief here. This weapon deals additional 1d4 damage against targets that have 50% of their hit points or fewer, and if it's in your main hand, you have advantage When you make a attack with advantage, the target takes additional 7 piercing damage. So this has also quite high damage because of that piercing damage bonus. If it's in your offhand, when you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you add your ability modifier to damage of attack. So this kind of has the built-in dual wielder if this short sword is in your offhand. Now for our ranged weapon, we're going with Deadshot. The number you need to roll a critical hit is reduced by 1. This effect can stack. So in our case, we roll a crit on a 16 if we shoot while being hidden. It also has the keen attack feat. The wielder doubles the proficiency bonus when rolling ranged attacks with this weapon, unless they have a disadvantage. So this furthermore increases your accuracy with your ranged attacks with this weapon. For the alternatives, you can use the bow to Banshee. One hit possibly inflict frightened, gain a 1d4 bonus to attack and damage against frightened creatures. This is actually a quite nice bow, since you are somebody who shoots quite a lot. You will frighten quite a few creatures with this weapon. And then the second one is the Blight Bringer. Attacking gnomes or dwarves with this weapon receives a 1d4 bonus to attack and damage rolls. This is okay, but it's situational. But what is nice is when you land a critical hit, you slow the targeted creature. So this is also quite nice. Now, the last one thing I have here is the Elixir of Viciousness. I would suggest this as your main elixir to use throughout the game because it reduces your roll needed for a critical hit by 1. So now we crit on a 15 if we are hidden, or 16 if we are not hidden, if our cloak is not in the effect. Alright, so that is it for the equipment section. We will now go to the Battle Showcase. Alright, so here we are, the Flaming Fist Barracks for yet another Battle Showcase. So before combat started, I did drink an Elixir of Viciousness and a Pass Without Trace. I casted it, didn't drink it. And let's take a look at our accuracy rolls. So we have 90% on armor class 16 and 80% on armor class 18. Now this is namely because we are using Deadshot, which doubles our proficiency bonus when rolling ranged attacks. Without it, or with a different weapon, we would have around 10 to maybe 15% less accuracy. We would then need to use one of the accuracy coatings on our weapon. But now let's go and try to hide. I just gotta make sure I'm outside of his dark vision radius, which is 40 feet. This should be enough. And our hiding was successful. Let's take a look at the roll. So we got a nat 20 with advantage, 8 from proficiency, 6 from dexterity, and 10 from the Pass Without Trace spell, so a total of 44, which is quite good. If you look at accuracy now, we have 99% chance, 96, and then everybody else is 99 as they have 16 armor class or less. Now let's go for an attack roll. Hopefully we get a crit. And if we don't, it's still gonna be fine. But we do manage to get a crit. And if you look at the damage, we got a 12 from our weapon. It's doubled because of the crit. We got an 8 from our weapon, from our dexterity bonus and the weapon's enchantment. We got a 39 from our sneak attack, which is usually a 6d6, but because it's a crit, it's a 12d6. Then we got a 10 from sharpshooter, and then another 7 from Dolor Amarus, total of 76, which is quite high. 2 from acid, and then 7 from our gloves, which got doubled. This roll can get doubled as well. It's a 1d4, but of course we got a 7 here since the crit. So now if we try to hide again and move, you normally want to hide again and move to another position, but you have to keep in mind that if you move and you go into the line of sight of a creature with dark vision, they will immediately spot you without the hide check. So that man Oak Hide, that Matt Oak Hide, he has dark vision, so he spotted us immediately. But for example, Rastal Muria, who's that? That's her. She, for example, wouldn't have spotted us because, as it says here, we succeeded a hiding check. But regardless, he spotted us, so it failed. So if you want to avoid that, avoid getting discovered, you can simply buy spell scrolls of greater invisibility, or have one of your spellcasters with that spell cast it on you, and then your rogue will pretty much be invisible for the entire fight unless your spellcaster gets his concentration broken. But that is it for the build. I hope you enjoyed. I would appreciate it if you leave the like and subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 content, and I'll see you in the next one.